In Mark 7, 9 through 13, Jesus gives the example of how they had legalized theft and thereby dishonored their parents in violation of the fifth commandment.
Dishonor their parents in violation of the fifth commandment. Modern Zionism perpetuates the lawlessness. The spirit of modern Zionism is based upon this entire mindset that Jews are privileged to steal land from Palestinians and to murder them if they stand in the way of this theft. It is based upon the idea that God is partial in his judgments, that Jews are the only true men, and that all others are on the level of beasts, and that therefore the law of God applies only to the manner in which a Jew treats a fellow Jew in good standing. This idea of Jewish superiority prevailed more in Paul's day than today, because many Jews today have a more enlightened view of humanity, having become more worldly. But among the traditionalists and orthodox, one only has to read their literature to see very quickly how they despise all others.
Wow.
I recommend reading Dr. Israel Shahak's books, Jewish History, Jewish Religion and Jewish Fundamentalism in Israel. Not only does he show the bigotry of Jewish religion, but also provides in himself the contrast that is seen in many Jews who have revolted against such bigotry. 23. You who boast in the law, through your breaking the law, do you dishonor God? 24. For the name of God is blasphemed among the ethnos because of you, just as it is written. Paul was quoting from Isaiah 52, 5 and again in Ezekiel 36, 20 and 23. When anyone is known to be of a particular religion, others look to that person as an example of his God's teaching. If the person is a liar and a thief, then his God is blamed. Men are fruit inspectors. If the fruit is evil, then they conclude that the God who planted the fruit is also evil. The dividing wall in Paul's day, the dividing wall in the temple established a division of humanity and gave Jewish men the right to come closer to God than women or converts among the ethnos. This division held true in all the synagogues as well, where proselytes were not citizens of the kingdom, but a servant class, following the presumed precedent in Joshua 9:27. But Joshua made them that day hewers of wood and drawers of water for the congregation and for the altar of the Lord, to this day, in the place which he would choose. Both Jesus and Paul corrected this overblown Jewish nationalism and religious bigotry, which was certainly the well-known reason why the ethnos were repulsed by Judaism. Unfortunately, the God of the Bible was blasphemed as well. Joshua's treatment of the Gibeonites in the verse above was because of special circumstances involved in that case. In part this was to fulfill Noah's curse upon Canaan in General 9:25-27, where Canaan was to be made a servant. Secondly, it was due to their deception in pretending to be from a far country, Joshua 9:6. The rabbis, however, turned this into a general principle, thinking this was how to treat all the ethnos only because they were non-Jews. Thus, the lawful judgment of Joshua was used as a precedent to justify racial bigotry. This, Paul argued, was a violation of the law. True circumcision is of the heart. Romans 2:25 and 26 reads, 25 For indeed circumcision is of value, if you practice the law, but if you are a transgressor of the law, your circumcision has become uncircumcision. 26 If therefore the uncircumcised man keeps the requirements of the law, will not his uncircumcision be regarded as circumcision? Paul had just accused the Jews of dishonoring God by violating the law. 2:23. In the next chapter he makes it very clear that all have sinned, Jew and Greek alike. For this reason, every Jew's circumcision was to no avail and had no value in the sight of God. The reason is that circumcision was, and still is, an old covenant vow of obedience, when done as a religious ritual. It is an obligation to be perfectly obedient as a condition for justification. But no one was able to fulfill that vow. Hence, circumcision was made uncircumcision through sin. In other words, they have all broken their vows of obedience, rendering their circumcision null and void. On the other hand, if an uncircumcised man were able to keep the law, will not his uncircumcision be regarded as circumcision? Yes, of course. Paul is not suggesting that any man is actually able to keep the whole law, for he says in 3:19 that the whole world has come under the law, that is, they have become accountable to God. Being under the law is not something that man does by making a vow of obedience, as Christians normally define the term. Being under the law is the condition of the sinner who has violated the law, putting him under arrest and held accountable to the law and its penalty. No man is under the law until he has sinned, for the law is made for lawbreakers, not for the righteous. 1 Tim 1:9. The law has no interest in us until we violate it.
Isn't that interesting? The law has no interest in us until we violate it. Likewise, it has no dominion until we violate it. No dominion over us.